All right, folks, buckle up. What you're about to see isn't just a speech. This is real-world tension, high stakes, and middle-class struggle on full display. From inflation to energy spikes, we're breaking down the moves, the impacts, and the moments that matter most. Stick with me, because we're going to dissect decisions and ask the hard question, are these policies helping or hurting everyday Americans?
Mr. President, as you well know, because I'm about to describe the good people of West Virginia as well as the good people of Louisiana and many other states. Most Americans get up every day, they go to work, they obey the law, they try to teach their children values, they try to do the right thing by their children, and they try to put aside a little money for retirement. I just described millions of moms and dads across your state and mine, all across America. But unfortunately, many moms and dads...
Check this out. Millions of parents lying awake at night, stressed and scared. Worry and fear are linked, and they're feeling it in their wallets. This isn't just emotion, it's economic pressure. And here's a question for you. If you were in their shoes juggling bills and childcare, how would you manage? Drop your thoughts below. These are real stakes.
Many moms and dads, when they lie down to sleep at night, can't. And they can't because they're worried. They can't because they're scared. Worry and fear are inextricably linked. And one of the main things they are worried about today in America is the cost of living. And worry and fear also can lead to anger. There is a lot of anger in America today among our middle-class citizens. And that anger is shared not only by the folks in your state and my state and other states, it's shared all across political party lines and all across demographics. Many of my Democratic friends and neighbors are angry, just as they are scared and worried. Many independent moms and dads are. Many Republican moms and dads are worried. And they're angry. Why are they angry? Well, first, let me say I understand their anger. It's perfectly predictable. Here's why they're angry. And here's why they're scared. These moms...
Notice the frustration. Families watching bailouts for the top while paying more themselves. This tension is real, and it's easy to see why anger builds. From a strategy standpoint, policy must match real-world needs. Quick poll, if you could redirect federal funds to help middle-class families, where would you put it first? Share your ideas. This is the dilemma leaders face every day.
These moms and dads who can't sleep at night because they're concerned about the cost of living look around and they see too many undeserving people. I want to emphasize undeserving because I don't want to paint with too broad a brush. These parents, these moms and dads look around and see too many undeserving people at the top getting bailouts. And they see too many undeserving, not everybody, but too many undeserving people at the bottom getting handouts. And they're in the middle and they're getting stuck with the bill. And they can't pay it anymore because of the cost of living. Now, this started back during COVID, when we experienced our first inflation, rise in the cost of living in America. And you don't have to be a senior at Caltech to figure out what happened. The federal government, at the suggestion of President Biden, spent bucket loads of money that we didn't have, particularly and especially after the pandemic was over. They just spent billions and billions of dollars. There was money sloshing around the financial system in America like it was confetti. And
now hold on, 9% inflation. That's a full-blown economic squeeze on the middle class. Think of it like law enforcement crowd control. Too much money in the system with limited supply creates chaos. Prices skyrocket, stress spikes. Those at the top aren't feeling the pinch, and some relying on public assistance are insulated. What would you do to stabilize this situation?
And these stimulus bills were passed at the suggestion of President Biden at a time when many of our supply chains had kinks in them. Now, what happens, and all this extra money that President Biden spent that we didn't have, increased demand at a time when supply was constant or going down. Well, what's the result of that? Inflation. That's how you get inflation. At one point, we had 9% inflation in America. 9%. And inflation is pernicious. It just guts the middle class like a fish. Those at the top aren't particularly bothered by inflation. And I don't want to overstate this, but many people at the bottom who depend on public assistance to live are not as worried about inflation because a lot of their public assistance is adjusted for inflation. But the folks in the middle, the ones who get up every day and go to work and obey the law and pay their taxes and try to do the right thing by their kids, yeah, they got some wage increases, but not as fast as inflation. Now, we have gotten that 9% inflation down. Before the conflict in Iran, we'd gotten it down to 2.5%, 2.8%. We were trying to get it down more, but inflation is very sticky. It's like a stray dog. Once you feed it, you can't get rid of it. Our goal was to get it down to 2%. The Federal Reserve was doing its part. I like to think most members of Congress were doing their part, but we were having really trouble getting it down. And then, of course, we had a spike in the cost of energy.
Now, here's the next twist. Energy bills up nearly a third. Imagine being hit with rising electricity and gas costs while already struggling. The conflict in Iran drives costs higher, and the impact hits the middle class first. Think like a crisis manager. Anticipate, minimize damage, keep people safe. What would you do if your utility bills doubled overnight?
Now, energy was already up. Under President Biden, the average electricity bill of the average American went up 28%, almost a third. So that started the fear and the anger among middle class Americans. But the conflict in Iran predictably raised the cost of energy, in particular the cost of gas and diesel fuel. I think most Americans understand. They don't like it. I don't like it. It's painful as hell. They understand that every time you have a conflict in the Middle East, the price of energy is going to go up. And once the conflict is over, it'll gradually come down. Usually it doesn't come down as fast as it went up. But it's still painful. And this this fear, this anger at the cost of living predates the conflict in Iran. I don't want to blame it on the conflict in Iran. It was there before, because we had inflation there before the conflict. And I know it's not. I'm not going to say it's just energy prices. It's not just energy prices. We were seeing it in food prices, for example. You shouldn't have to sell blood plasma to go to the grocery store. But a lot of middle-class Americans felt that they just about had to. Now, I talked to the president about it. He understands it. It frustrates him because he didn't cause that 9% inflation. No disrespect, but President Biden did. He did. He spent money that we didn't have like it was ditch water. I think if we had discovered life on Mars when President Biden was president, he would have sent it money immediately. That's how much money we were spending, which caused all this inflation. But it frustrates President Trump because these are my words, not his, but I've heard him say, in effect, why are people mad at me? I didn't cause this inflation. Yeah, I did what I had to do in Iran, and it's gone. Gas prices and diesel prices have gone up, and fertilizer prices. But the American people aren't stupid. They don't read Aristotle every day because they're too busy earning a living, but they understand the energy prices will gradually come down after the conflict is over. But the president says, why am I getting blamed? And I've told the president gently, Mr. President, I understand your frustration. You didn't father this child. You're not the daddy, but you got to raise it. You got to raise it because you're the president. And I don't want the American people to think we've been doing nothing. We've done a lot already, as you know, Mr. President. We passed the One Big Beautiful Bill. Now, I could stand here and most of the provisions of the One Big Beautiful Bill, which are going to help with the cost of living, are just now taking effect. People are already seeing tax refunds bigger than they've ever seen, and that's going to help. And it is a breathtaking piece of legislation. I don't think I've never voted for a bill that was more impactful and that covered more subjects. And I've talked before about no tax on tips and the fact that we prevented a $4.3 trillion tax increase. I'm not going to go into that, but I do want to highlight one of the things that we did, one among, frankly, thousands in the One Big Beautiful Bill, to try to help people in the middle class who are scared and who are angry. I'll give you an example, and you know this, Mr. President. We have a program called the Child and Dependent Care Tax Credit. Now, we've made it complicated as hell, as we do, as the federal government is want to do. But this is what.
Now we're getting into child care relief programs, complicated but crucial. The Child and Dependent Care Tax Credit provides families hundreds of dollars to ease the burden. It's like procedural law. If everyone understands the rules, it works. For 4 million families, this could mean real, immediate relief. How would you explain this to someone struggling to file taxes? Think about the impact.
This is what the Child and Dependent Care Tax Credit basically does. Basically, the federal, if you're a mom and dad and you're working and you have to pay for child care, which is outrageously expensive. I'm not blaming the child care providers, but it's just really expensive. Under the Child and Dependent Care Tax Credit, we'll pay a portion of your child care expenses. And this program's been around since 2001. In the One Big Beautiful Bill, we amped it up. We don't talk about it much, but we did. For about 4 million working families, they're going to get more money to pay for child care. For many families, that's going to mean an extra $900 a family to pay for their child care. I'm very proud of that. We heard the American people, and we did something about it. We also have another program, way too complicated, called the Employer Provided Child Care Credit, 45F. Let me tell you what it does in simple terms. It basically says if you're a businesswoman or a businessman and you want to help your employees and you want to attract new employees because you need them, we will give that company a tax credit to pay for a portion of the child care expenses of those employees. So that's the second way that we have at the federal level to try to help people pay for their child care. We, under the One Big Beautiful Bill, we expanded that dramatically. That program's also been around since 2001. And to make a long story short, which sometimes is difficult for me to do, basically in the One Big Beautiful Bill, we have given employers all across America more money so they can, in turn, help their employees by giving them more money to pay for child care. We don't talk about it enough. But parents with kids will start feeling that immediately. We also have a third program at the federal level that we beefed up in the One Big Beautiful Bill. It's called the Child Tax Credit. It's really the simplest of the three. Basically, if you have a child in America, we will give you a certain amount of money to defray the cost of raising that child. Now, look, children are worth it. Okay, I don't mean to talk in just purely financial terms. I love my son more than life itself. I remember when I was young, my dad used to tell me, son, you will never know love until you have a child. He would tell me, he said, son, it's not like the love for a spouse or the love for a dad or a mom or a sibling. I just can't describe it, Dad would say. And I'd say, oh, Dad, okay, you know. Well, he was right, and you can't know that till you have a child. So I don't mean to talk about children just in financial terms, but it's expensive to raise children. We increased in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Right now, we give parents $2,000 per child to defray the expenses. We raised that to $2,200 a child. But more importantly,
boom, child tax credit increased from $1,000 to $200. That's not just numbers. That's groceries, school supplies, and less stress. Policy meets reality here. And adoption credits give families even more support. Audience question, do you think this federal intervention genuinely stabilizes the middle class, or is it a temporary patch? Let's hear your take.
But more importantly, had we not acted, we not only acted, but we increased the child tax credit, but had we not acted, it was going to go back to $1,000 a child. So I think it would be fair to say that we increased the child tax credit from $1,000 to $2,200. I don't want to get too partisan, but I was very disappointed that my Democratic colleagues, not a single solitary one, voted for this. We also increased the adoption tax credit. We basically decided to give more money to people who want to adopt children. And I could go on, but I won't. I could talk about the Dependent Care Assistance Plan. I could talk about the paid family and medical leave credit. But the point is, Mr. President, this is one of the reasons we passed One Big Beautiful Bill. And I don't want anybody to think that we in Congress, at least our side of the aisle, the Republican side of the aisle, is not aware of and is not trying to help with the cost of living. And this is just one small part of the one big beautiful bill.
Here's the wrap-up. From stimulus spending to energy costs to targeted tax credits, every policy decision impacts lives. Some helped, some fell short, and it's up to us to understand the consequences. If you found this breakdown as intense as we did, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more political John Kennedy breakdowns.